Welcome to Arts in the City. I'm Carol Anne Riddell. We're in sunny Battery Park on the southern end of Manhattan. We're enjoying a much-needed summer break from the fast-paced flow of New York City, so we wanted to bring you a few of our favorite segments. Our first story is about Will Ellis, a photographer who captures beauty in some of the city's most remote locations forgotten by time. Here's Tony Guida's story from this past May.
Will Ellis looks through his camera lens and sees the past. Ellis is a photographer and urban explorer, rummaging through New York's ruins to learn the tales they have to tell us.
And this is the New York City farm colony.
In the middle of Staten Island, remnants of a civilization that flourished 120 years ago and passed into history, a campus for the city's poor.
So the idea was they worked the land in exchange for their room and board. It all pretty much looks like this.
What it looks like is Dickensian.
So these partitions would have been, what, rooms?
Yeah, this is where the residents would actually live. So you can see really close quarters, but it was either that or, living on the streets.
At the dawn of the last century, as many as 200 residents grew enough vegetables here to feed thousands. But as the country prospered, the poor found better jobs. Replacements for the farm's aging workforce became scarce. The farm colony was abandoned in 1975.
This place, like more than any other, has become almost like a public space. The teenagers coming in here and doing graffiti, the paintballers out there building, obstacles for their games. So it's interesting to see what the public will do with the space when it's totally neglected and, kind of left up to them to decide how to use it.
Voices of another extinct population echo in this once abandoned railroad tunnel on Manhattan's Upper West Side. In the 1980s and 90s, this was the home of New York's mole people.
There were hundreds of people living down here at the time. They had some pretty intricate living spaces. They had pets, some of them, places to cook, electrical hookups. So it wasn't a bad place to live at one point.
A documentary was filmed about the mole people. There were countless television stories and at least 2 books, one by a journalist, another by an anthropologist. The mole people became celebrities. But when Amtrak resumed running trains here, the Society of Mole People ended.
We're in a tunnel, but if we were standing here 80 years ago, we'd be at street level and there'd be no roof.
And it was actually called Death Avenue at one point because so many people would get killed just crossing the street, be struck by trains.
To turn this slum into Mayfair, Robert Moses covered the train tracks, added tons of landfill, and created Riverside Park. Few visitors realize trains run below them in a tunnel that is famous as an iconic image of underground New York.
This area was once called Barren Island.
On a stretch of Brooklyn's shoreline lies an isolated area whose history Ellis calls ghoulish, with the ghastly name of Dead Horse Bay.
There were horse rendering plants where the city's dead carriage horses would be sent to be turned into glue and fertilizer.
That was in the 1850s. By 1900, this became a landfill, accepting all of the city's garbage. The landfill was capped in 1953, but 60 years of tithes have uncapped it, revealing in bones and bottles and all manner of debris the history of a grim period in New York.
Will, you find beauty in decay?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that. I think it has to do with this with death, in a way. How we're kind of simultaneously attracted to it and repulsed by it. And for some people, that just makes things more interesting, and they can find beauty in that.
Ellis has written a book about his explorations called Abandoned NYC. It contains dozens of his exceptional photographs, a timeless record of a city that is constantly changing.
I think that's why it's important to take a moment and take stock of what we have or what we're losing. It's important to document these places and remember their stories.
I'm Tony Guida for Arts in the City.
In April, we profiled Bulletproof Stockings, an all-female rock group whose members also happen to be Hasidic Jews. Tinabeth Pina interviewed these convention-breaking women.
Crown Heights is a neighborhood where its men and women strictly observe the laws of Judaism. And out of this community comes a women's band who's trying to combine rock and roll with their Hasidic beliefs. Let's meet Bulletproof Stockings.
What else are we going to call an all-girl Hasidic rock band? Bulletproof Stockings. I think it pretty much tells you what it is right off the bat.
There's a joke that people tell, it's kind of this derogatory term, about women who wear these very thick, opaque stockings, so thick that they're bulletproof, and these are Hasidic women. I'm like, okay, I'm embracing this lifestyle, I'm going to totally own that joke. We're using the rock and roll language per se, but we're infusing it with everything else that we're about, which is like, we are Hasidim, you know, that's how we live our life. So it comes out through the music.
Being a Chassid means living in the real world and bringing these positive elements and bringing the spiritual down to earth.
How does Hasidic music infiltrate your music and your sound?
They're
Nigunim, yeah, Hasidic melodies. If you listen to our music and you know Hasidic melodies, I think you can easily see the influence. It's old world. It's got a kind of a little bit of a classical sound in some respect. It's very soulful. It's a little bluesy, and I think that comes through in the music as well. Being a Chassid is awesome because every single day is about doing better than yesterday. And every single day it's like, yesterday was good, how can today be better? How can I make the world a better place and spread more light and joy in the world? So it's just awesome.
Yeah, and how does an all-girl Hasidic rock band form?
After my second divorce, I started writing music, which was very unexpected and it happened really naturally. It just started flowing out. I had no previous experience on stage before this, so it's kind of like really putting myself out there.
I've been on stage performing drums since I was 16, and even like the first time I ever touched a drum was on a stage. I had just gone through a huge life change, you know, moved my kids here, just rebuilding, you know, after losing my husband. And I was getting a lot of calls for doing a lot of music things, which was beautiful, but I definitely didn't have like extra energy to like devote to anything until I met Carol.
It was an instant connection. Right away, it was like, all right, cool, let's do this. We're forming a band. It was like an unspoken thing. We knew that it was going to be big, and we knew that we were going to play for women, and we were just like, all right, let's take it on.
Why do you guys perform only for women?
We want to create a space where women can rock out and be themselves. People commonly confuse it because there is a Jewish law for men saying that Jewish men aren't supposed to listen to the voice of a woman singing who is not an immediate family member. It does shape what we do in some ways, but
it's a very special thing to have an environment where it's just you and your sisters.
Darling, how can you be so blind?
Jewish girls, non-Jewish girls, they'd all be into it. It's such a rush and it's such a spiritual experience to be on stage, and it's really the energy from the women that makes it.
You just do not know what you're worth.
I love their music, but I also just love what they are. You know, an ultra-Orthodox alternative rock band that's gone mainstream.
I think they totally blew us away. They rocked, totally rocked.
It's really fun, it's relaxing. You sort of don't have the same energies that go on sometimes when men are there, and women can really sort of let loose and sing and dance.
What would be like your ultimate dream? Where do you see you guys performing? Madison Square Garden? Headlining? What's your biggest dream?
Headlining Madison Square
There
Garden.
you go.
Hasidic Farbrengen.
Yeah, or even having like a festival, like a whole like Women Palooza kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like having a traveling festival that we could take everywhere with all the, you know, female talent that's out there for women to celebrate all around the world.
I'm Tinabeth Pina for Arts in the City.
Nas, Wu-Tang Clan, Run DMC, and Notorious B.I.G. They are just a few of the names who have called New York City home. In January, we ran a story about how the city can claim hip-hop as its own through the words of the artists themselves.
I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. Now I slam it when I'm done and make sure it's broke.
Hip-hop created a musical landscape in the 70s and early 80s by giving New York or the Bronx, especially the Bronx, a musical foundation or a new start, because we were just coming off the 60s where the entire city was bankrupt. That environment kind of gave birth to hip-hop. Hip-hop is a culture based on 4 foundational elements: DJing, MCing or rap, graffiti, and breakdancing.
People use the terms interchangeably, rap with hip-hop, whereas hip-hop is the bigger culture. Rap is something you do. Hip-hop is something you live.
Coming from the disco era, you know what I mean, we were inner city kids. We couldn't get into disco, so we had to recreate that disco. And that's what basically hip-hop started out as, like the bastard child of disco. I mean, it was our rebellion against that and our recreation of it at the same time.
You see, I am Wonder Mike, and I like to say hello.
The turntables became our instruments. Like, so a lot of people in the inner cities, they didn't have money for instruments. So you had to find those sounds somewhere. So you dug through your pop's Cradle records, and you just listening for these different instruments and sounds, and then you pulled from those different sounds and made a total new creation. People forget that the DJ is the backbone of hip-hop. That's where it all started. DJ spinning at parties.
Kool Herc is actually documented as the father of hip-hop. When he was playing the type of music he was playing and maybe the way he was playing it, it brought out a different type of energy than ever experienced from that demographic at that time.
And he just started putting one drum break behind the next drum break, and you would just go to Herc party just waiting for those breaks.
B-boy and B-girl comes from Kool Herc. B meaning break, okay? Break boy. You dance on the break. That's it.
It all ties into dancing and really going off during the break beat of a song at a party back in the days.
And then there was different parts of the record where you could talk over it and then the beat's still going, but you don't lose the attention of the record or the main part of the record. That evolved to MCs getting on the mic and just saying things to keep the party going, which evolved into actually rhyming and rapping, because these different MCs will have little sayings that they said.
Party people, if you're ready to rock, let me hear you scream.
A teenager named Africa Bambaataa started the Zulu Nation at the Bronx River Projects. It was a new type of gang which focused in on music and dance.
Bambaataa was the first guy to say, hey, let's all come together. You can all play on my set. So he was integral in uniting hip-hop. And in '82, when Planet Rock came out, became a universal hit. That just added to his prominence and his outreach to the rest of the world. The connection between hip-hop and graffiti, it's an urban thing. Though it was here before the actual rest of the elements of the culture, the people involved in graffiti were directly involved in hip-hop as well.
Fab Five Freddy was the bridge between hip-hop and graffiti. He brought the South Bronx and the people from Harlem downtown to where the hipsters and where Keith Haring was and Madonna were hanging out. Before he was a DJ at Yo MTV Raps, he was a graffiti artist.
MTV made hip-hop global. It broke it out of being a niche kind of music or something like these black kids or Latin kids are doing in certain urban areas to an actual viable genre of music that reached middle America and mainstream America. Particularly Walk This Way was the record that took hip-hop next level on MTV, man. That collaboration with Run DMC and Aerosmith was just perfect. That was really the moment that hip-hop became global, and MTV played a big part in it. UK, South Africa, where, you know, English is one of their major languages. You see it in Brazil, you see it in Japan. You know, they're big into the culture, man, and you'll go to a concert in Japan, man, and they're rapping every word in English, and then they don't speak a word of English.
Hip-hop connected the world and music together. This is what the Score did. This is what Puffy did. Dr. Dre did some of this stuff too. That record that I've done for Shakira. Hello? It's hip-hop and hip-hop working together. You know what I mean?
I think institutions are trying to preserve hip-hop when you see places like art galleries. You see it in fashion. You see it in business. I think that's preserving hip-hop, even when people don't realize that's actually preserving it.
Welcome to Hush Tours, the original and the only hip-hop sightseeing tour on the planet.
Hush Tours is a hip-hop sightseeing tour based on the culture. It's guided by the pioneers of hip-hop, and we take people around the city to different places that were relevant to the development of the culture. Nashville celebrates country music. New York City needs to celebrate the birth of hip-hop.
We created something from nothing. And hip-hop was the first art form that spoke to me. People who looked like me, people I could look up to, the way they put these words together and tell these stories about places that look like where I live. And that's just like what hip-hop is all about. It's just evolving and staying ahead of the curve and being something aspirational.
Another art form that blossomed in this city is graffiti. We spoke to some of its earliest pioneers who developed their craft underground with the subway system as their canvas. Here's the story from our first season.
The newest exhibit here at the Museum of the City of New York is called City as Canvas, showcasing the expansive collection of 70s and 80s graffiti art amassed by artist and collector Martin Wong, a mentor to many of those budding artists. Charlie Ahern, the filmmaker of the iconic film Wild Style, about that era, talks about its unforgettable and often illegal beginnings.
The city was bombed by 1971. Surfaces all over New York City were covered with inky, drippy tags of various people's names. The question was, what is this? It was just like a complete horror to people in New York because the city was in a state of free fall financially. Neighborhoods were in a state of collapse. Buildings were empty. Fires were raging. And it was a tragedy of unspoken scale. There was a kind of new movement in New York which started with graffiti, which centered on teenagers being free and doing things to make themselves felt in the world.
At first, it was just naming or tagging, as they called it, on the subway. It was dangerous, but they say worth it. Lee Quinones, or Lee as he was called, started at 14.
Oh, it's exhilarating. I mean, it's reconfirming yourself in a very, very loud, distracted environment.
Lady Pink was 15, one of the few teenage girls who dared to do it.
Well, when you see your name rolling by on a subway train, they're dirty, they're loud, they're gigantic. It comes rumbling into the train station, and there's your name in full living color. It's very addictive, empowering, the fame, the glory.
Then it was not enough for these young people to write their names all over the surfaces of the subway. They had to create a style to stand out.
Don't even use the term street art because these words were not introduced yet. For us, it was graffiti. It was really writing. We were writers. I mean, strangely enough, we probably couldn't even read very well, but we consider ourselves writers. You know, it's kind of a joke. But later, graffiti artists, because then trying to transition into, you know, hey, we're a little more creative than that.
This was the first of its kind. It had never been done to that scale and that kind of composition. Composed colors and all, and this was the first time that literally above ground, the artwork staked the flag of that we have arrived.
If you look at over here, you know, you can see this is a subway car from 1983, and this was a really traditional way that we painted our names on the sides of a train. These sketches were drawn out previously, and then, you know, sit down and map out the color scheme, often choose, like, you know, these different characters to either put in the center to sort of augment the lettering. But then at a certain point, it was time to, like, you know, build on that.
Sharp developed his style into abstract lettering. Futura 2000 created a unique figurative style. Another emerging artist from that time with his own style was Days.
I was really influenced by Mad Magazine, underground comics, and the music and culture of the early 1970s.
These are highly personal works. They are coming from something very, very deeply either joyous or traumatic, real personal stories.
The painting I have here titled The Death of Graffiti shows a little naked woman standing on a pile of spray paint, pointing to the subway trains, saying that graffiti will die soon. It will be over. This great thing that we have all loved for so long through the 70s and such will come to an end. And eventually the war was lost and the Transit Authority cleaned all the subway trains by 1989.
Downtown art galleries had already encouraged these young artists to paint on canvas so they could be shown in their galleries. Artist Martin Wong also saw the promise of their work. He nurtured their art on canvas and collected the best of it.
People in Europe began to know about this, and they thought of it as the new pop art from America. Like, you missed the last wave from New York City. That was pop art. Now it's too expensive. But you can afford a Lady Pink or a Days or a Lee Quinones.
Teens from around the world also flocked to Ahern's movie Wild Style, starring Lee and Lady Pink and Henry Chalfant's Style Wars. They wanted to be cool too and express themselves through this new art form. Many of the artists who you see in this exhibit went on to global artistic and commercial fame.
And ultimately, illegal or not, they affected the city. They changed the way the world looks, because trains are clean now. We don't see this work on trains anymore, but we see it everywhere else. We see it in graphic design and advertisements. It's all over.
Summer's the perfect time to catch up on all those books you've been meaning to read. Last October, I sat down with a mother-daughter author duo whose books you'll want on your summer reading list. I loved hearing you guys talk about guilt. Talk to me about guilt a little bit.
I think she thought of the title is like the muscle behind love. You know what I mean? Guilt's what makes you do things. And especially with mothers and daughters, and probably women in general. I mean, I think in general we should all guilt ourselves less. Like, only women can guilt themselves so well. Oh, yeah. I feel bad, I ate that.
We really are experts, aren't we?
Right, like let it go, because your mother's there to guilt you. So you don't have to do it yourself, right?
Francesca, I loved your essay about getting over your now married ex and reaching the zone of unwashed hair, which, you know, been there.
Right, right. Well, now, and like this modern technology, I mean, when I saw that the first time my ex-boyfriend got married on Facebook, like that's just a level, like I was over it. I thought I was over it, and I was, but seeing, you know, an altar kiss photo is, pushes the boundaries. Like, that's unnatural. Nobody has to see that. So, yeah, that was rough, and that was, maybe you didn't know just how nutty I was getting with that, but yeah.
No, it's not nutty. I don't think it's nutty. You're allowed to have emotions about that.
Yeah. And so speaking of the exes, you've got thing one and thing two, which I found hilarious.
Thank you.
And I loved what you talked about. You said you didn't really miss marriage, but you missed the diamonds, right?
I totally missed the diamond. I did, and I went and I said, you know what? It was one of these moments where I was like, in seriousness, the thing about being someone like me, and believe me, there's a lot of women out there divorced and single or widowed, and if you're middle-aged, like, they're not knocking down the door. I'm just going to be realistic with you. And so you're on your own. Now, are you going to fold up the tent? No. You're going to live your life. But what can happen is you become a little disengaged. But so what I did was I said, don't be disengaged. Remind yourself to stay engaged. So I bought a ring for myself. It was an engagement ring. Get it? I have the money to buy myself the diamond. I don't need a guy to buy it. And it's just a little reminder to say, you're still in life. Yeah. Don't hide out. Stay engaged.
Speaking of money and careers, it wasn't as easy when you started out, right? There's a story about when you first decided to leave the law profession and really go for it as a writer.
Right.
Tell me
well,
about
I
that.
got single at the same time. So, you know, you get a divorce. This is the thing you don't try at home. Like, try to become a writer and also get divorced with a small baby who's adorable. And I never regretted it, honestly. I gave myself 5 years to And I lived on credit cards the whole time. My favorite rejection letter from an agent in New York who said, we don't have time to take any more clients, and if we did, we wouldn't take you. Oh. Now, I go to Book Expo every year. I spoke at it, and I see him there, and I'm like, I remember you, dude. 20 years later, don't come near me.
I feel so lucky that I got to see her build her writing career brick by brick, that it didn't fall into her lap easily, and that, I mean, I remember when she wrote an entire first novel and tried to get it published, and it didn't happen, and she just wrote another one. And I don't even remember that as a time of turmoil or great grave disappointment in our lives, because she just moved on. And I feel so lucky that I was born to, not to a best-selling author, but to a beginning one, because I got to see that work ethic and that perseverance that went into it.
Talk to me about Mother Mary. She's so wonderful. She's such a wonderful character and interesting, and I was so sorry that I just heard that she passed away.
Yeah. That was a heartbreak for us.
Mother Mary is
my grandmother and her mother, who we've written about so much, and she was the youngest of 19. And yes, and like dirt poor in the Philadelphia, like Italian American. And I think she probably never got the attention, 19 children, she never got the attention that like she knew she deserved. And she's just had always been a wonderful storyteller and with a fiery sense of humor and just absolutely hilarious. So it was like you couldn't not write about her. I mean, she was a star long before we gave her a stage.
There were so many anecdotes. I was just like laughing out loud over the eggplant. Can you recount the eggplant for me? She knew you were lying about the eggplant.
Well, there must.
I know
it's very bad when your mother can always tell you're lying, even if it's over the phone. How scary is that?
I know.
We make eggplant parm because I love eggplant parm, and we all both love it.
That was one of her signature dishes.
And long story short, she's always insists that you have to cut the eggplant and let it drain overnight. You get this much eggplant water. What am I draining? I have to wait and plan. So I stopped doing it, and then one day I called her, and she's like, "Did you drain it?" I'm like, "Yes." What's more embarrassing, that she lied to my mother at my age, or that she knew?
And then she busted you.
She totally busted me.
We have to talk about the animals, because you two are like a couple of Dr. Doolittles.
I know. Pip is my dog. I act all cool, like, oh, I'm not in any rush to get married or have kids, but really it's just because I already have a child and his name is
And a husband
Pip.
kind of rolled into one.
Whoa. No, I'm not going there. I don't know.
Now, what about your dogs? You have, I know you had one who had puppies, and then you've got, just run me through it again.
I have 5.
Do you think that cats and dogs can, in some moments in life, replace husbands and boyfriends?
I think love is love, I mean, no, I don't think they can replace those types of relationships.
We look at everything with humor, but the truth is I think there is something to when you're kind of on your own in life, how do you make yourself happy?
Yeah.
And whether it's you buy a ring or you rescue a dog or you kiss it on the lips, and yes, they kiss it on the lips, who's to say there's anything wrong with that? It's a good thing. Yeah. You got to learn in this life, no matter which way your path goes, how to make yourself happy and whole.
That's our show for today. We'll see you next month with all new stories on the season premiere of Arts in the City. I'm Carol Anne Riddell. Thanks for watching.